This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Dream Power Radio. This is the place where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love and rediscover the truth of who you really are. Today's show is about moms, but it's not only for moms, it's for anyone who's been a mom, thinking about being a mom, or knows someone who is a mom. As someone who's raised two children to adulthood, I can tell you that being a mom is one of the hardest jobs in the world. Unpaid job, that is. Couple that with a money-making job, and you've got a recipe for stress, anxiety, depression, and that just plain feeling that nothing you do is ever enough. Does this mean that motherhood means you can never have your dream life? Absolutely not. There are ways that allow mothers to live their lives, their multitasking lives, that is, with ease, focus, and yes, happiness. And one of the people with that formula for success is with me today. Ami Dehne is a business coach who helps mompreneurs live creative and meaningful lives. And she's going to tell us how she does it. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Ami.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here today.
Oh, it is my pleasure. And, I love talking about this subject because I don't really touch on it enough because it's tough being a mom and a business person and a spouse and all of that all put together. And
Exactly.
when you have a way to do it that really works and you do, I got to share it. So let's go.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I want to start with this though. You found that magical formula the hard way. Tell me about the challenges you faced when you first became a mother.
Oh, Debbie, that's such a big question. For me, the transition into motherhood is one of the hardest transitions I have really ever experienced. It really blindsided me, to be honest with you. And I think for me, really what it came down to is the fact that I'm so purpose driven. And I realized when I had these two babies that I really longed for purpose and creativity outside of the boring yet busy days of motherhood. And so as I was at home breastfeeding my children, I live in Canada, so we get really nice, long, like 18 months paid maternity leave here. I was sitting on the couch breastfeeding my children, and my husband at the time was out there. He was busy building his electrical contracting company. So we made a decision that I would stay with the kids. And through that process, I was just I was spiraling down. I was like, wow, he's out there doing this really cool purpose work. And I'm here just I can't leave the couch because I have 7 pounds of stardust sitting on my chest, which was beautiful. And it was really challenging. And I didn't know at the time really what was going on for me. I just knew that I wanted something more than that. And what I was realizing is that I was starting to form resentment and anger towards my husband and my kids of being like, why do I have to stay home with these kids? Why can't I go out and do these things I want to do? And so while this was happening, I would hear my husband's conversations from the kitchen table, and I would be throwing things out there. I'd be throwing things to him like, well, what if we could be an electrical contracting company that actually did things differently? Because the trades is a very, very old way, patriarchal way of doing things. And they don't really treat employees well, typically, in my experience of it and watching my husband go through it. And so I was throwing all these big questions, like, what if we could do it differently? What if we could do it this way? And my husband would come back and say things like, the trades isn't done that way. And I said, but what if we could be the ones that could do it different? And so I really was holding these strong visions because that was a way for me to start to feel purpose and creativity outside of my kids. And don't get me wrong, this wasn't about me not loving my children. I hope you're not hearing that in what I'm saying. I'm saying I wanted to find a way to look after myself and for me not to be the center of the family, to have stuff for me that was outside of that. And so I really struggled with that. And so now today, fast forward 7 years, my oldest is now 7, my youngest is 5. of course, are older, but things are starting to come into more harmony. And I'm starting to find that harmony between how to be a mother and how to be a business person. And so if we were to fast forward a little bit, what happened was that I was like, hold on a second. I have helped my husband build this multiple 7-figure business. I'm raising 2 very resilient, amazing children. And I really feel strongly about turning the status quo of what it means to be a mother on its head. Like, what if motherdom does not have to be done alone behind 4 walls, doing the hardest thing we've ever done? Like, this is not supposed to be the way we're supposed to be raising our children. Like, what if we could raise our children so that when we go out into the world as parents, we are so fulfilled in our own identity and our own purpose and our own creativity that when we come home to our children, they're seeing a mother who is so lit up and excited and clearly has something that's outside of her children that is bringing her joy and passion. And so that has really been that's the underneath. This is why I work with moms. I work with them because I believe in this bigger thing of like, I really, really want to turn the status quo of motherhood on its head.
Yes, and I want to get into what you mean by turning the status quo of motherhood on its head. So tell me, tell me what is that?
Okay. Well, I feel like, I touched on it a little bit. Like, the way the motherhood was taught to me was that I had a mother, and I love my mother so much. She was so dedicated to us. And what I really saw was that my mom really gave up herself for her children. And I think a lot of mothers, especially in her generation, and I still think it's happening now, are giving up themselves for their children and for their family unit. So the husband can go out and work and do the thing. But what I was noticing in that is that I could enter, like, children. The thing about children that's really, really you have to be careful with, but it also makes them beautiful, is that they don't need words to have an experience. They can experience things energetically. So they can like feel what is happening around them without you having to use language, right? It's outside of language for children. And I really believe that. And so what was happening for me is that I was energetically noticing that my mom was not super fulfilled and happy in what she was doing. She also wanted more, but she was living in a time when she didn't really know how to do that, or the structures weren't yet set up for her to be able to be like, I'm going to go out and do this thing and I'm going to go and get fulfilled. She was very practical and logical about it, right? You stay at home with the kids. And so I kind of held this like thing. I was like, oh, I'm the reason why my mom's not fulfilled. Like, I know like intellectually that's not true, but energetically I could feel that. And so now what I'm saying is like, well, if that's the way that motherhood has to be, I'm saying, what if it could be different? Like, what if mothers, the status quo, meaning like you stay at home, you are the center of the family, the family revolves around you, you give up everything for your children and your family. And what if you could have both? Like, what if a mother going out and truly being lit up and truly being fulfilled can actually revolutionize the way that children are being raised and that the family structures are being had.
I know that is such a great goal. And, I'm probably of your mother's generation more than yours. And I tell you, it was very hard because the generation before me was very much mothers stay at home, and very few women go out into the business world. And it was changing in my generation, but I didn't really know what it meant to be a mom. I was the youngest child in my family. I didn't have a lot of extended family around me, so I wasn't around little kids even with mothers to even see how they were doing it. And so I had this idea, I wanted it all. I wanted to be the mother, the wife, the professional person. And at the time I was a working writer, and I had some contracts to write books. And I actually naively thought that all I had to do was put my little baby daughter in her carrier. sit her on the floor, and I could turn around and write, and she just sit there, and that would be it. Had no idea that babies are squirmy and squiggly, and move and have all kinds of stuff. So I learned very quickly that wasn't going to work. And there weren't a lot of resources, though, to say, what do you do? So there was a lot of fumbling and figuring around and everything. So, I applaud your being able to show mothers today how to do it. How
Totally. Well, thank you.
held it all.
And I will say that, I wanted to add that I'm not saying that mothers that decide to want to stay home with their kids is wrong or bad. That is not the case. But I am saying that I know that it's not for all mothers. And I know that cultural structure that mothers need to be home with their kids, or that you need to be working a 9 to 5, that's the only way that you are allowed. If you could see me, I'm doing air quotes. You are allowed to be away from your kids, is working a 9 to 5. I'm saying I don't think so. I'm saying I don't think that's how it has to be.
No, it doesn't. And one of the things that even now I think is becoming much more viable, much more accessible to women is the whole idea of entrepreneurship, or being mompreneurs, is, a word that didn't exist in my generation and is now, very, very common. And you work with women who want to be mompreneurs and have an idea of what they want to do, but they're not sure how to do it. So how do you steer them into the way so that they can have their business, be great mothers, be great spouses, and have it all?
Totally. And I wanted to comment on having it all. I think what it's about is about being really purposeful and being very intentional in the decisions that we're making. So that's a lot of the work that I do with moms, is I really work on what is it that you really want? Like, why are you doing it? I know it's such a cliche type of thing to say why, but it's actually really important. Like, what is it that you want your life to look like? And how do we get you from point A to point B? And so for the moms that I work with, they want to be able to bring in some money to contribute financially to the family. Because what they're feeling like, if they're working 9 to 5 or they're working a part-time job, is that they're tired of building somebody else's dream, that they want to start building their own dream on their own. And like what's happening today, like I reached out to you today, like our childcare canceled on us last minute. And like the amazing thing is that I didn't have to call anyone and beg and borrow and plead to stay home with my kids. I got to be able to stay home with my children. So what I help moms do is I help them structure and package and position their idea so it's actually sellable. And that's really important, especially in the online world, because it's highly competitive. As I'm sure you or many of your listeners are listening to, we are in the middle of the Great Resignation. There are many different people that are quitting their jobs. They are estimating that 40% of the workforce in 2023 are going to be quitting their jobs, and people want something different. So I help them and guide them through the messy world of the internet to be able to stand out, to lead with their why, to be able to actually make sales, to sell something that they feel really, really good about, that's very intentional, and so they can contribute financially to their family.
Yeah, and I want to get into that, but I also want to get back to what you said, which was actually the very practical experience of having childcare cancel, or maybe you're with your child and your child gets sick and you hadn't made arrangements. How does a busy mother today be able to navigate through all of that now?
Well, I mean, I think that it comes back to like my own values. And so for me, like, it's really important that I remember that, like, I chose to be a mother. For me, I was lucky enough to choose to be a mother. So I chose to be a mother, and my first value are my children. So my work is really important. It's my third baby. I birthed that into the world also, but my children are my number one priority. And so I'm always kind of looking at like, okay, so how do I like manage my day right now so that my children are taken care of, that they don't have to sit in front of a TV all day, and I'm still taken care of. And so, I'm lucky enough, my husband works for himself. I work for myself. We split the day in half. I work the morning. And here's the thing I want to talk about is that one of the things I find to be really challenging by running a business and having children is being present with my kids. That part is really hard, because when work is done at 12, if I'm working a half day and it's only done at 12, my brain is not turning off. I'm still thinking about work all the time. And I'm still like kind of usually in the middle of something. And I make a very intentional decision to leave my phone, to leave my computer upstairs. And I go down and I'm with my kids for that second half of the day, so that I'm presently with them. So then they're not feeling like clearly mom's with us, but she's actually not with us. So we talk about the harmony, and those are ways that I do find the balance harmony of being with my kids. Is I make very intentional decisions on like the technology that I'm going to be using in front of them. Of course, I'm not perfect at this at all. I'm not saying that, but I found techniques that make it much more doable for me to be able to be with them and still run my business.
Very practical, meaningful things. And with that, we do have to take a short break now. We are speaking about mothers and business and having that balance with Ami Dehne, and we'll be right back. If you're not pleased with the trajectory of your life, the time to begin your own personal transformation is now, and your dreams can help pave the way. How? By tapping into your unvoiced confidence. What is unvoiced confidence, you say? It's the acceptance of your abilities and qualities. It's a state of mind coming from liking and even loving yourself, and feeling free to say or do anything you want without concern for the judgment of others. You were born confident, but may have had it chipped away little by little by the negative self-beliefs you've picked up over the years. If you're looking for the heightened energy, clarity of thought, and the feeling of being more alive that comes from self-confidence, you can rediscover it by paying attention to your dreams. Need some help doing this? Go to my website, thedreamcoach.net, and sign up for my complimentary dream discovery session. I can help show you how your dreams can help you return to the confident person you were always meant to be. Again, go to thedreamcoach.net. thedreamcoach.net.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're talking about moms and business with Ami Dehne. Well, Ami, right before the break, you're talking about needing a real purpose and knowing your purpose and knowing what that is to really be successful, not only as a mom, but as a business person. What if you're not sure what your purpose is? How do you go about finding?
Oh man, Debbie, that gave me heebie-jeebies. I want to say that I think going back to what I was saying at the beginning of the conversation, I think my anger and resentment was coming from the fact that I actually didn't know what it was. That like I really struggled in school. I struggled in university because I wasn't a person that was like, I know what it is that I want to do. I love novelty. I love newness. And so for me, I have never woken up and been like, boom, this is my thing in the world. I've kind of dabbled here and I've dabbled there and I've dabbled here and I've dabbled there. And so for me, it's not that I know my purpose. It's just that I know right now what really has my interest. And I think those are two very different things. I really love talking to people. I love the mindset work around what stops us from bringing our greatness to the world. Those are things that are more in alignment with my purpose. And then I kind of think of that as like the ice cream cone. And then I could put different flavors of ice cream on top of that. So I've dabbled in things. And whenever that interest is no longer with me, I move on to the next thing. I kind of talk about it as like when you go to these like facilitated events, and at the end of the event, when they're harvesting all of the information from this long day's process, you can walk around the room and you get a little dot and you can vote. You can put your dot on the thing that you care, that you really were interested in. And for me right now, my dot is on supporting moms and bringing their business to life. And I guarantee you that is going to change for me probably in the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to evolve and change. And so that's the other thing I love about being an entrepreneur is that it's my say. I don't have to ask for permission to do that from anybody. I get to let it evolve and change. And so how do you find your purpose? I think it's really about it's having the willingness to try things on, to not get stuck in the what ifs and the risks of things. And whenever I'm about to take a leap and to try something different, I always ask myself the question, what is the worst thing that's going to happen if I make this decision right now? Like I literally get practical. I make a list. Like, what is the worst thing? And it always comes back down to, I will lose my house and have to move in with my mom. Like, that's like the worst thing. And I'm like, can I accept egotistically that risk. And I'm like, to do this thing and to try this thing that's really pulling me right now, is really calling me, I'm willing to accept that. Because at the end of the day, it's usually never catastrophic. The thing we're trying to do is not going to have catastrophic impact in our life. Our fears are usually bigger than what the reality of the situation is ever going to be. And so that's kind of really how I think about purpose, how I think about actually acting and engaging and trying on different things.
You touched on that word, I think, that affects everyone, whether they're a mom or anybody in the world, and that is fear, because that is one of the things that holds us back from trying, and even not only even trying, but even thinking that you could do something. Because you get to that point where you say, no, I'm not even going to think about it because that can't be me. That's somebody else.
Exactly.
How do you help women deal with the fear that pops up?
Yeah. I mean, I always acknowledge that the fear is there it's a survival mechanism. We were born with fear. We were hunters and gatherers at one point. We had to be afraid in order to survive. So it's a part of us. And there's a difference between fear and courage. There's two different things. The fear is like, am I going to die? No, you're not going to die. Can I hold the fear and still be courageous enough to try something? Right. So I always distinguish those two things, because it's usually courage is what you need. It's usually always courage. And so I help people by getting them into action, because small actions, one step in front. Let's try one thing, whether it's like one Instagram post or one thing, go tell one person you're doing this big, bold thing. And then, because action creates clarity, and the clarity creates the confidence. And so I'm really with people in the weeds. Like, I'm literally walking side by side with people through their business for the first 90 days. I'm in the weeds with them, literally every day on the phone, like through text and voice messaging, guiding them. We know very clearly where we're headed, where we want to go. And it's the small actions that are going to get us there.
Well, another thing that pops up, I think, for everybody, but especially for mothers who are juggling so many things, including business, but just even the day-to-day business of being a mother, is time management. So how do you help women have that focus to be able to coordinate things so that they're not saying, oh, there's no time for this?
Well, I think I always ask them to like list out their, like, to think about like what are, talking about kids. I can hear my children down at the door trying to get in right now. So pardon if that's what you're hearing right now, but that's my life. So I talk about momhood. I talk about like priorities. So, we need to think about like, what are our priorities, right? Because a lot of the time it's not that we don't have time. Time is infinite. It's the structures we put around time. And a lot of the time we use time as a way out to not actually have to do the thing we want to do. We use it as an excuse. And so I always ask people to, is it really that you don't have time, or is it that it's just really not a priority right now? Because those are also two different things. So I'm like, do you want this business? Is that something you really, really, really want? Because you have to want it. And if you do, you have to stop using time as the excuse. And I'm not saying, of course, we're moms. Like, a lot of the time we're doing these things in the middle of the night when our kids go to sleep. We're having to build our businesses when our kids are sleeping. And so I say, it's like, get that this is a priority and we're going to chip away at it. It is not going to happen all at once. And to find, I call it the stolen moments. It's like finding those stolen moments in your day, in your evening, that you can do one thing. So it's a big thing I work with moms on, is how to simplify and focus their businesses. Because when we get into business, especially in the online world, it's very noisy. It's very loud out there. So how can you keep things very, very simple? And simplicity actually breeds results. And so we get simple, we get focused. And so that way, when you do sit down at the computer, very, very clearly the tasks that you're going to actually tackle for that session, that stolen moment of time.
Very important. What do you think is the biggest obstacle that moms face when they're starting out their business, and how do they overcome it?
I think first, I can only speak from my own experience and the experience of the people that I've worked with. But so for me, the people that I work with, are willing to push boundaries. They're willing to step outside. I call it the I call it, they're willing to drive off the highway and go down the dusty side roads. And so the people I work with are willing to try the dusty side roads. They might not like it for very long, but I always remind them they can come back onto the highway and go with the flow of traffic at any point that they really want to. And so the question was obstacles. Sorry, can you remind me?
Yes, obstacles.
Like, so what happens when we get stuck with obstacles?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's just about like knowing that obstacles are always going to be a part of our journey. They're always going to be there. And so that's why I'm such an advocate of working with somebody who has done this before. I've been in business for 10 years. Like, this is not my first rodeo. I've been in it for a very long time. And it wasn't until I found a mentor or somebody that was a few steps ahead of me that could help guide me, give me a map and a roadmap of where to go and how to get there, that did my success really start taking off. Because I'm such a DIYer. I want to do all the things on my own. I don't want to hire somebody to do things for me. I'm a DIYer. But I started to realize that my DIY-ness was actually holding me back. That I needed some help from somebody else to actually guide me along this path. And they were helping me remove my obstacles. Because what happened was that we get into our heads, and I call it getting into monologue. We get into our heads, we start this crazy, like, the stories, these things, all the limiting beliefs that really stop us from moving forward. And so I always talk about getting into dialogue. And that's why working with somebody, it doesn't even have to be a business coach. It's somebody that you trust, that you know that has done this work before, that can help pull you to the next step. And then the next obstacle is going to come, and you're going to overcome that obstacle. And it is knowing that the obstacles are always going to be there. That's the thing about being a business, is that we are just now professional problem solvers. That's what we do. We're professionally solving problems all the time. And so I help people understand how to solve problems. But it was taught to me, and this was so interesting, is that your business is only as big as the problems that you can solve, that you can handle solving. So if your business isn't growing, it's because the problems that you are willing to solve, or you're willing to look at, you can't handle it yet. And it's about the acceptance of where you are right now in your journey. And that's not wrong or bad, but knowing where you want to get to, and like having a vision of where you want to get to, knowing that that's always going to be there, and that's not going to go away.
That's so important. And I tell you what, the point you made about, having a mentor or somebody who can help guide you is so strong. One of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn was to ask for help. Because I was always, I can do it myself. I don't need you. And no, it doesn't work that way. To be willing to ask for help is probably one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself.
Exactly. It really is. It's so hard to ask for help, especially as a mom, because you're the one that everyone comes to, right? Mm-hmm. It's really hard. And it's hard. It's what I always say, one thing at a time, one step at a time.
Yeah, well, I can't believe this has gone by so fast. So I just have time for this final question. How can people find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. If the people that are listening right now are really interested in wanting to take the next step, I have an amazing 3-step process. It's a free offer. It's a 3-step process to actually getting over these obstacles and getting traction. I've been working at this for many years, and it helps people actually get going. And you can download that at amidehne.com. And I trust that my name's spelled a little wonky. I spell my name with an I, not a Y. My last name's spelled a little bit weird, but if you could link it up to the show notes, people could find me out there, amidehne.com.
Yeah, we will have it in the show notes, so
great,
people can access it there. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay, we've been speaking with business coach for moms, Ami Dehne. I hope you've enjoyed our program. If so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie, or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.